Since this past Wednesday, August 14th, the campus at Canadian Mennonite University has been resonating with the sounds of strings. The Rosamunde Summer Music Festival and Academy is now on. Students as young as 5 all the way up to 65 have been learning intensively from some of the finest string players in the country. The Academy and Festival wraps up on Friday, and all this week, Rosamunde is offering performances to the public by both students and faculty. Today, August 20th, and on Thursday, August 22nd, it is the faculty who will take the stage at the Laudalmas Auditorium at CMU to show their stuff. Music of Bieber, Bach, Ravel, Schubert, amongst others, will be heard, as well as music by Canadian composers Kelly Marie Murphy and Carmen Braden. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about the Rosamunde Academy and Festival, I am joined by faculty members, cellist Roman Borys of the renowned Griffin Trio, and Gwen Hoebig, who is the concertmaster of our Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. Hello to you both. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, Chris. It's great to be here.
Great to be here.
Roman, I want to start out the conversation with you. When did you arrive in Winnipeg, and have you started teaching at Rosamunde, and what does this upcoming week look for you?
Well, we arrived at, I think 4:30 this morning. And Annalie and I flew from the West Coast from a festival that we were at, and Air Canada is getting things kind of better. I don't want to, but last night was a rough night for them, and so we didn't get here until quite late, and then we started teaching at 10 this morning, and it was great actually. The young players have all sorts of energy, and you quickly forget that you're tired. You have a cup of coffee and you get right in there, and they're making beautiful sounds and they're enthusiastic. It was fun.
Perfect. Gwen, you've been teaching at the Academy for several years now. What keeps you coming back and wanting to take part in the Academy?
Well, I would say it's the students and my colleagues. My colleagues, just because we enjoy working together so much, and the students because it does give you such an energy and such a buzz, as Roman indicated. And I just love working with young people anyway, and so a number of my students are here, and it gives them an outlet and, just a different outlook on what they're doing.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about when I was prepping for the interview is, Gwen, you're obviously an established veteran orchestral performer, and Roman, you're an established chamber player. Has Elation scheduled things to play to your strengths? Like, Gwen, are you working a lot with the orchestra group? And Roman, you're working with chamber players?
The interesting is, you're speaking about the skill sets that we have. To play in an orchestra is to be an amazing chamber musician, and gosh, I am sitting beside one of the greatest chamber musicians I know here.
You are being far too kind.
No, and
but we do it together.
It's all about having your ears turned on and listening and collaborating, and and then making your way through rehearsals and just making a great thing happen. But as far as the kids go, it's all the key skills. I mean, what is my point? My point is that I guess we're here, we're listening, and that's what we all do, is listen so carefully for the details and get the kids to open up their minds to all these details. Anyhow.
I'm going to change it a little bit in saying that, we're so glad that Annalie and Roman are here, because a big part for us as the rest of the faculty, because we are all local, is we all know each other so well. We've played together hundreds of times. We all work together all the time. We know each other's foibles. But it's really awesome that Elation brings in people from outside our community to allow us just to work with new people.
To be introduced to some new foibles.
What?
I brought my own suitcase.
You can look at it however you want. But we all have our own quirks. And we all do
course.
Things. But it's just so great that we get the opportunity to play with other wonderful, usually Canadian, top of the echelon musicians. And Roman and Annalie are just certainly inspiring to all of us who get to work with you, which is not me.
No, but that's a huge thing in the summers. I mean, and for the Griffin Trio too. You know, we've been playing together for 31 years, but we just came from another festival where Jamie got to play with some other people, and we did as well. And it just keeps things fresh, and it's fun. You know, you know, after a while, you solve problems in similar ways, and very often in the most efficient way. And you learn to do that well. And as long as you know the compromises aren't too, you know, aren't against anybody's grain, it's a good thing. You keep doing this, but it's so wonderful to just change it up, get somebody else's perspective, and get, you know, sort of a counterbalance to that decision-making process, and take it in a different way. I mean, there's so many different ways to approach all of this music, and it's, you know, coming together with new people, or with people that you don't play with all the time that are really amazing, is a great opportunity. So thank you, Elation.
Exactly.
Speaking of foibles, I'm always fascinated with string players, and one of the things I always think about is, when you're teaching, are there the same things that keep coming up? Like, what kinds of things are you constantly talking about in lessons? Is it intonation? Is it sound? Are there quick fixes to help students?
Sometimes, and sometimes it's slow. Like, I was working with one young lady today who is very stressed about her vibrato. And she is so stressed about her vibrato that it's tying her up in knots. And did I have any success in getting those knots untied? I thought I did, but I'm not convinced that she thought I did. And so, no, each person is their own individual, unique makeup of wonderful qualities and things that need work. And even the most wonderful student, as we all know with ourselves, we still need to work. We still need to work on things, and we still need to fix things. And so it's, you know, hopefully the students are open enough to listen to us all and to believe in us and to try. And so it's always an interesting journey, and it's a slightly different or very different journey with every one of them.
Well, and just to hear you talk about that whole teaching process, about that engagement, about, you know, you're meeting the student and you're seeing how they react to things, and you know, you have so much experience with this, and just to hear you talk about it makes me, it's a good prep for, you know, tomorrow morning's 10 or more, because
We do it together,
you know, I
Roman.
mean, they see, you know, you see how they react, and you know that if you load it on too much, you know, they just, you know, they I mean, you know, they basically get defensive in a way, because you know, you don't want that to happen. You want them to, you know, to sort of surprise themselves, you know, with the little discoveries. And it's always so nice when, you know, when you can see an opportunity to just get them to do something that they can feel right away. Because many of the things, to get back to your question, some of these things, you know, they're organic, and it takes so much time. You just have to do it, and in a few days, and that's why consistency and practicing and just going back at it regularly is one of the things that, it's, you know, one needs to stress with these kids, because you can't just pick it all up. It's not like, you know, building something and you did it wrong one day and you build it again the next day and you know that one move. Well, there's a bit of that, but it just, suddenly your body just reacts differently. Things are balanced differently, and suddenly things start to move differently, and anyhow. I find cellists, to answer your question from my perspective, you know, often, you know, will grind their teeth. You know, as soon as there's something that's kind of difficult, there's a tension, and you can start seeing it, you know, in their face. So I just get them to smile, and everything just goes away. It's great.
Do you ever get them to open their mouth with inside their, like, keep their lips shut?
Yeah, I mean,
yes, we have jaw issues in the violin, not surprisingly, considering how we hold the instrument. But we have jaw issues too, and yeah, there's so many opportunities for tension in what both of us do.
Exactly.
And probably in playing the clarinet as well.
Yeah, totally.
That there's so many, you know, issues with tension, that trying to get people to work with working with the tension so that you're releasing it all the time is a big part of what we both do.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So tonight and on Thursday, there are these two wonderful faculty concerts happening. And one of the things that struck me when I was looking at the programs for both of the concerts is they both feature works that I associate with both of you. Roman, the Kelly Marie Murphy piece, Give Me Phoenix Wings to Fly, and Gwen, The Lark Ascending. It is the recording of choice here in Classic 107. We have several recordings in the station, and yours is the one that I always go to that you did with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. Roman, I'm going to start with you. Can you talk about the piece, Give Me Phoenix Wings to Fly, and can you talk about how the commission process worked for that?
Okay, so this is a piece written by the wonderful Canadian composer Kelly Marie Murphy, really one of our senior composers now, and we...
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Huh.
I mean, you know,
It's
I mean, I can tell you, the trio started in '93, and this was one of our first commissions, or probably the first publicly funded commission. So I made some phone calls and listened to some music, and then I brought the results of that research to Jamie and Annalie, and okay, we should ask this Kelly Marie Murphy, who we'd never met. And she went, and she was, we had great phone conversations. Those are the days where you could just cold call. I mean, I still do that, but I think it's funny to talk about it now. You just call somebody that you don't know. Hello, young people. If there are young people that are listening, it's a really cool thing. You call somebody that you don't know, you introduce yourself, and you tell them that you love what they do, and you talk about stuff, and then a brainstorm happens, and you start changing the world and making things happen. Like, they don't understand how wonderful that is. And you didn't have to write anything, just pick up the phone and talk. Anyhow, that's what I did with Kelly Marie, and she wrote this piece, which is based on the myth of the phoenix. So it's in 3 movements, and the first movement is about the fire that the phoenix burns, and there are just ashes left. The second, so it's a very vigorous movement. The fire is very intense, and there's a kind of a classic, what I think of now, classic Kelly Marie style. She has a way of running, and she has energy there. And then the second movement is extremely contrasting. Just imagine embers, and these days a lot of people, doesn't take much to imagine embers.
Especially if you're in Jasper.
I know, gosh. I mean, this piece actually, from that perspective, I mean, sort of suggests a bit of hope, because in the last movement, and the whole bit with the phoenix is that then it rises from the ashes and life starts anew. And when we started playing this piece years ago, we didn't have these fires as often as we do. And occasionally, you'd have some big wildfire in Yellowstone, and they'd let it burn, and they'd say, this is a good thing. There are certain seeds and cones that don't open. It takes all these fires, to cause the regeneration that happens. But I mean, I think we're crossing. There's regeneration, and then there's something else. In any case, we learned the piece, and Kelly Marie came to Toronto. We'd never met her in this vigorous thing, and we went to pick her up, and I'd never met her. And we were waiting in front of this hotel, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm thinking, God, I have this image. I didn't realize I had this image.
She writes the craziest music. Like, it's got so much energy
and
so much contrast.
And yet, I'm looking for this personality that wrote this music to appear and come towards the car. And I'm looking at the front of the hotel, and I'm just waiting for this person to come out. And there's this other person coming towards the car that's kind of like in the way. I'm trying to see. And she comes right to the car, and it's Kelly. And she's got, at that point, she had this very straight hair, and she just looked like polite in her blue suit, and just like, you're Kelly Marie Murphy.
She looks like everybody's favorite aunt right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome.
Oh, she's awesome. Anyhow,
she is awesome.
But it's been a great piece for us. I've been on juries of chamber music competitions in Europe, where that piece is one of the pieces that young trios play, and that's pretty cool, I have to say. It's been published by a very nice German publishing house, and so I mean, we've commissioned over 100 works now, and they're, it's nice to see that there are a handful that people are playing regularly, that we continually play. And then, as Jamie says, there's also the handful that that for which we should organize that dernier performance.
And so, how is playing the piece with Paul Williamson different than playing with Jamie?
It's fantastic. I mean, he's a wonderful pianist. Really spectacular. I mean, and we just sat down. We could if we had to, we could have read it from beginning to end without any problems. I mean, he's a fabulous pianist, and he clearly plays a lot of contemporary music that's clearly much more complicated than this. He's used to all sorts of things. This, as far as complication goes, and this is very approachable music. This is a music that you can imagine a story through. So audiences enjoy the energy and the athleticism of the piece. But he's fantastic, and it's actually what the interesting thing is that Annalie and I are playing from the original scores. You don't like to change your scores, and he's playing from the published score, and of course, Miss Kelly Marie Murphy made a couple of little, corrections or whatever here and there, and he's bringing the score to me. And he's saying, they weren't major things, but it was kind of funny. I think we need to use that new score that we have. No. But he's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, we missed Jamie. I know Jamie's going to do a Facebook report on this thing tonight. He's going to say, "Oh, you guys, what are you doing? Play with me." But it's great.
And Gwen, I'm going to turn it over to you. As I was saying earlier, nobody plays the lark ascending like you do. What is it about this piece that keeps you coming back to it? And are you daunted by any of the elements in the work?
No, I'm not daunted by it at all. I love it.
Yeah.
And to me, it is the epitome of the countryside, peaceful countryside that we all dream of. It's just that music is reflective of that quality. We have my husband and I now have a place out at Lake of the Woods. And so just to sit on the deck in the morning and hear the birds go by and, watch the nature. And this piece is so in tune with that feeling. And it's something that in the hustle and bustle of the city, you just completely forget about. And so it's just to be able to play it is wonderful, and I love it. And I only play it when I'm asked to play it. So I have actually, up after it was recorded, which was in the mid-'90s, I didn't play it up until about 5 years ago.
Really?
And then in the last couple of years, I've been playing it more again.
And am I right about it? It doesn't have a time signature?
Oh, no, most of it does.
Oh, okay.
It's just, there's a little sort of cadenza part to open up, and then it's all time signatures, and then there's a little one in the middle, and then one at the end. And you're right, that doesn't have time signatures.
Fantastic. Roman, you and Annalie tonight are going to be doing the Ravel Sonata for cello and violin. When I think of the Ravel, I think of diverse textures and timbres, and we definitely get that with just these two instruments. What do you and Annalie love about playing this piece?
Well, I mean, it is an unusual piece. It's fantastic. I mean, there's every form of pizzicato for the cello and every other kind of pits now do this. I mean, it's amazing. It's cyclical. The themes come back. It's I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Gwen, you played this thing a bunch of times. I mean, what do you make? I mean, it comes off. I mean, it is not what people expect when they listen to Ravel. I mean, he's definitely going in directions, and I guess he's really trying to orchestrate him. He's just amazing, actually, how much sound this piece generates, given that it's only two people. And I think it's a thrill to observe, and you can tell that he's really making us go. I mean, it's one of those things that we try to walk the walk and say, okay, this is a complicated piece, but you really need to kind of stay relaxed and show those kids how you just kind of move around this thing.
And it's hard.
And the movements,
it is hard.
The
it's
movements
really
are so contrasting. Like I think of the second movement it's very much pizzicato, and then the third movement is that very lyrical section,
slow.
and the final movement has a bit of a Hungarian flavor. And I was thinking about the Kodai.
He was inspired, by that. That's another very famous duo for cello and violin, and that was really made an impression on him. And I think you're a good observation.
But also, I think that there's so much of that piece that feels like it's outside, with all the tremolos and the pizzicatos. And
actually, I can tell you a funny story about that. The first time we played that piece, we were invited to play it in this music garden in Toronto, right on Lake Ontario, that Yo-Yo Ma was actually involved in creating. Okay. And it's grown into this beautiful thing. But it was way back when, and Annalie and I both had Canada Council instruments. And Annalie had that Weinstein Strad that had already once been soaked, right? So here we were, Yes, that happens, ladies and gentlemen. People leave very expensive instruments outside during wedding receptions and watch them float. So that happened. But that instrument is, it's been restored.
It's been rebuilt a few times.
Built a few times. So Annalie had that instrument, and I had this other cello, and we were supposed to play this thing outside, but then the threat of rain was there. So they had this festival had this big cube van that they brought certain equipment. Most people sat on the grass, and it's sort of a little amphitheater. But we decided that the safe thing to do was to play it out of the back of a cube van while everybody got soaked. It was great. That was our first experience with the Rebel Duo, playing at the back of a cube van. The only thing that would have made it more interesting is had that cube van been driving down the road.
I got to ask about Bach. Gwen, on the second concert, you're playing the prelude to Bach's third partita for solo violin. There's actually quite a bit of music for solo violin on that second concert. Carl is playing the second Isai sonata. For both violin and cello, Bach wrote a great deal of music for solo instruments. From a pedagogical standpoint, what kinds of things in a player does it help with? And are you working on those same kinds of things with the students at Rosamunde?
Oh, definitely. And many of them are studying solo Bach now. And I taught the last movement of the C major today, and it's just such fundamental playing. Like to be able to play your instrument well, you have to be able to play Bach well. Whether it's playing all those chords, because there's so much of it is contrapuntal, even though it is only the 4 strings, or is it just being able to play cleanly up and down the instrument, observing the dynamics and the few dynamics that Bach has given us. It's so basic but so important, and so it's fun to play even for myself when I practice it, because it brings you back to that really fundamental playing, which is so important if we're going to play the Ravel duo, for instance.
Are you suggesting I should go back to my hotel and go through the complete Bach suites tonight before we rehearse the Ravel?
No, I am not.
One of the things I always...
No, you did that yesterday.
If I only
You did that yesterday in the Vancouver airport.
Actually, there was this piano playing by itself at the airport yesterday. It was very
funny how that works.
One of the things, I think of Bach is the double stops. I mean, for cellists and violinists, it just helps to sort of keep those kinds of things in tune, right? And just really making sure that they're
speaking
aware.
of those double stops and, Bach, one of my favorite things, I wonder if you have a recording of this and if your audience has heard, Gwen's probably going to reach over here and, grab me by the throat. But one of my favorite things, and just because it was such a great arrangement, was the arrangement for 4 cellos of the Bach D minor chaconne, and simply because a lot of the lines that are just sort of implied in the solo part are fleshed out a bit more, and it's just such an incredible piece. If only
you should talk to Carl about that, because he's just in the process of arranging a string version for the Manitoba Chamber Orchestra for this fall.
Oh, that's going to be amazing! It's just
so we were workshopping it with him earlier this month. But
there's a task, boy. That'll be very.
That's a daunting task,
Yeah.
And it's really fun to see what he's done with it.
Similar to Sitkovetsky's Goldberg variations,
which is awesome.
Right,
yeah, it is.
For string trio.
That is awesome.
And we did the chamber orchestra version of that. Is actually, it's basically.
Well, he's just fleshed it out a bit.
Yeah, a little bit more, but that's. But so yes, Bach. It's even the Bach double concerto. We played that last week. Hadn't played that in years.
Isn't it awesome?
It was that slow movement.
I know.
Just melt. It's just the purity of it.
Yeah.
So inspired. Just transcends everything. To have people sit in a room. This is why music is so important. Live music. The station brings it out there and they hear it in their homes. But for people to come together in a hall, and experience music together and see in each other a similar reaction and think, God, you just get a sense of that universality that is real humanity, And these days there's so many issues out there in the news and everywhere else that seem to be just pushing us all into separate corners. You know, you put a bunch of people into a room listening to music, and then you remember that we all actually have much more in common than we have apart. Anyhow.
The second concert is called Death and the Maiden, and of course, the Death and the Maiden quartet by Schubert is the second half of that program. In 25 words or less from both of you, why is it such a down-the-line hit with audiences? Gwen, maybe I'll start with you.
Because the Schubert quartet.
Yeah.
And the Schubert quartets are as great as any music that was ever written.
Yeah, no, and we just have to spend lots of hours before that concert.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be super awesome.
Yeah, no, it's you just, that opening. I mean,
dramatic
and just, you know, life affirming in one way. You know, he was struggling with life, and that he could pour it all out in that way. Schubert more than, I mean, you know, Beethoven, of course, poured it all out and actually did it in a way that was very shocking for audiences, you know. I mean, that he did all these things in C minor. But Schubert as well, and for all the anguish and suffering that he carried, and that it all manifested itself in this genius, you know, this output, these works.
And the contrast with the sweetness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So. This has just been so great. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking, aside from tonight and Thursday's concerts, what else are you looking forward to about Rosamunde for the week?
Lunch every day with my colleagues.
Which I missed today. Very bad form. So I'm looking forward to lunch all the other days with my colleagues. I'm looking forward to, you know what I really enjoy? You meet the students, and they play for you, and they show you things. You know, the master class are just, you know, a bunch of cellists in a room together doing things. I mean, you get a certain sense of what they can do, and they pick up on things. But when there's a concert at the end, I love that. It's like, wait a second, why didn't you show me that? I mean, there's, you know, that audience. And so come on out, audience. Those concerts are free, I believe. The student ones, and come and support these kids. They need you to be there. They need for you to be that audience that they play for, that audience that causes them to really concentrate and pull it all together in ways that helps them define a new high bar. And that's what's exciting about festivals.
And that's what we're really here for.
Yeah, right.
I mean, so much for lunch with my colleagues.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, really, we're here to help inspire the students and inspire each other. And that's really the fact that we work in such a profession that we can do that is so life affirming. It's so good.
Perfect. Amazing. Gwen and Roman, this has just been fantastic having you both here in studio. Thanks so much for taking the time to stop by and talk to me.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
For our Classic 107 listeners, tonight and Thursday's concert take place at CMU's Laudamus Auditorium at 7 p.m. For a complete program of all the concerts being offered this week by the Rosamunde Academy faculty and students, go to classic107.com. I've embedded a direct link to the page in the article that you can find up on the website. Gwen and Roman, thanks again.
Thank you.